everybody, and welcome back. I hope you're doing fantastic. As we said earlier today, this is D-Day. This is the definition day, not to say the least. And now it's time to look at what you all have contributed to when it comes to the new definition, the new revised definition, or the proposed such one, for what bullying really is. So, to do this, let's welcome some very special people on stage. Christoph Kornu and Magnus Loftsson. Yes, get on stage here. You all know these wonderful persons as before. Welcome, Christoph. Welcome, Magnus, co-host here. Yes, please take a seat. And also with us on link, Donna Cross and Shoko Yoneyama. Welcome. Okay, so to set the stage a little bit, some of the members of the working group, you co-convened, right? And then you have convened a lot, like the last day, right? Looking at all the results. Magnus, do you want to fill in?
Yeah, we have, we're so grateful that so many people here have also contributed in the survey. I think that is really awesome, and we just want to thank you for doing that, both online participants and on-site. Thanks a lot for sharing your feedback.
Yes, great. And Christoph, you've been sweating the last 24 hours, right?
Yes, well, we'll deliver. Very often people complain about research findings being delivered too late. Well, today won't be the case because we worked all night and we will deliver the results.
Lovely. And also let's connect to our wonderful persons online. Donna, I hope you're doing well. There has been a lot of talk during this conference on the social turn, or a turn to a social foundation of bullying. Could you please give us a rationale for the sociological approach in the new revised definition?
Certainly, and thanks everyone. Hello from Australia. At the last Dublin conference, there was a fair bit of consensus that the definition that we've been using for many years really needed to be revised, and largely because we determined, and many others in their research, that bullying in the past is thought to only occur in a dyad and mostly related to interpersonal power or individual traits, and that it's related to psychological deficits in the perpetrator, and that it can be reduced through increased supervision and control, and that it can be defined and measured and described value-free. And I think many people agree that those assumptions are a bit tricky these days with what we've learned about that, and particularly because we know that a one-size-fits-all model of research is not working, and that highly gendered assumptions about what's good behaviour for boys and girls and so on is no longer appropriate, and of course the very narrow focus on gender and thinking about students or children and young people as collaborators. And of course there's that fundamental bias that always something wrong needs to be fixed. So hence the need for a new definition, and a definition that takes into account that bullying occurs within a social network, in a social network of schools, a whole education system, including parents and teachers and students and so on.
Yeah, and thank you, Donna. And Dr. Shoko Yoneyama, the new definition focuses on the personal experience of harm by the target of school bullying, regardless of how many times a student is being bullied. Could you please tell us a little bit more about the target-centered approach?
Sure, but before that, could I just say that it's such a privilege to be here as a member of the working group of UNESCO and the World Anti-Bullying Forum to talk about the proposed definition. It is, this is the last session before closing. So I also like to say that I really enjoyed many presentations that suggest that we are moving to a new stage in tackling bullying based on more than 40 years of research initiated by Professor Orwells. When I published a paper on school factors and paradigm change in bullying studies 18 years ago, I was definitely a minority. And even in the 2 years ago in the World Anti-Bullying Forum in Dublin, where I gave a keynote, I was still feeling a bit, swimming against the current. But now there is definitely a strong current towards major change, and I feel honored to be part of it. So could you show the next slide, please? The proposed definition is our attempt to translate the whole education approach or sociological approach proposed in the UNESCO Scientific Committee's recommendations to address school bullying at the end of last year. Christopher has been promoting the document throughout this conference. And while revising the definition in the past 2 months or so, we also came up with a target-centered approach to shift the focus clearly onto the targets of school bullying. The whole education approach and target-centered approach are interconnected with each other. There is a holistic connection between them. Bullying is clearly linked to an absence of effective response and care towards the target students by their peers and adults in the education system. The connective tissue here is care in education. Care is essential for prevention and intervention. Next slide, please. So what is a target-centered approach? It focuses on the personal harm experienced by the target of the bullying. There are 2 components here. One is to focus on the physical, emotional, or social harm experienced by target students. This is in clear contrast to the existing definition, which is about unwanted aggressive behavior of the perpetrators. I was very moved by Maya's words in the opening ceremony. Maya said that the most important change she'd like to see is for students' voices to be heard more in bullying prevention and intervention. Now, this shift in focus of the definition responds to her call and goes one step further by focusing on the target of the bullying. In Japan, this shift in focus has already happened in the official definition of school bullying, as explained by today's keynote by Chiki Ogiue, the director of the NPO group in Tokyo, Stop Bullying Navigation, or Stop Ijime Navi. This shift occurred because the existing definition was insufficient to accurately identify cases of bullying based on aggressive behavior of the perpetrators, which is often refuted and hard to substantiate. In Japan, 94 cases of attempted suicide after bullying has been reported in the past 40 years. Of those, 47 students lost their lives to bully suicide. Next slide, please. The second component of the target-centered approach is to focus on the target by removing the reference to repetition in the definition. Next slide, please. The rationale for removing it is twofold. One is, first is the experience of harm by the target is not directly linked to the number of times they are bullied, especially in the case of less tangible relational bullying. Repetition is not a major characteristic of school bullying. Second, repetition is less relevant to online bullying, where a single incident can have a vast impact, including the harm caused by target's anticipation of continued threats in future. Next, please. So to recap, the proposed definition is to promote the whole education approach and a target-centered approach to provide a more inclusive and comprehensive perspective of bullying, a clearer focus on helping the targeted student, and a greater emphasis on prevention, perhaps, rather than intervention, to help all students, perpetrators and the target, by improving their school experiences, by emphasizing the significance of care in education, which should also include care for teachers. So this is all from me. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing your response to the online survey now. Back to you, Freda.
Thank you, Shoka. Yeah, applause. I love the word care. I felt the warmth in that. Well, that sounds very promising. And Christoph, as you said before, you worked hard this last day. So are you ready to share some of the results from all the feedback, your key findings?
I am. So can I have the
You want a
first
clicker?
slide, please?
Oh, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Great, thank you.
Okay, so let's have a look first at who responded. Can I? Okay, so yeah, but people can't see the.
They can see.
Oh, they can see it. Okay, sorry. So we had
bad.
120 respondents from 33 countries. And about 90% of them are from Europe and Northern America, which I think reflects the participants of the World Anti-Bullying Forum, with 4 countries, I wouldn't say overrepresented, but very well represented. And we have a majority of academics, followed by representatives of civil society organizations. And we have also some representation from the school community, 10%, and education authorities, 8%. So now...
It's here and it's there if you
oh,
want.
sorry, yeah. So yeah, sorry, I was completely confused because I was trying to go fast. So do we need a revised or definition of school bullying? You will hear the response now, thank you. So the response is yes. It's overwhelmingly, there's an overwhelming majority of respondents that said yes. It's 71% of respondents. Here we try to have a kind of analysis by constituencies or categories. So we see that academics are more likely to say no, and people who are not academics are more likely to say yes.
Mm-hmm. Why is that?
I'm not going to interpret the data. So now let's have a look at if respondents agree with or not with the proposed revisions to the existing definition of school bullying. So as you can see on the screen, the most popular revision is to clarify the nature of school bullying by including in-person and online behavior in the new definitions. That's 81% of the respondents who agree or strongly agree with this revision. The second most popular revision is to stress that school bullying always occurs within a social network. It's 66% of respondents who like this suggestion. This is followed by the proposal to include the mention of the physical, emotional, or social harm experienced by targeted students. Shoko just mentioned this, as 65% of respondents who strongly agree or agree with this revision. Still, a majority of respondents also agree with the revision linked to the fact that imbalance of power is enabled or inhibited by the social and institutional norms and context of schools and the education system, 60%. Now going to like a smaller majority, a much smaller majority of the respondents agree with removing the reference to the fact that bullying is a behavior that is repeated over time. It's only 53%. And then a very smaller, even smaller majority who agree that we should include between students. It's only 51% of respondents. And then let's move to minority of respondents who agreed or disagreed. So it's only 45% who agree with that, the suggestion that we should include bullying implies an absence of effective responses and care towards the target by peers and adults. 33% disagree or strongly disagree. And I think that's it. And now moving to the overall opinion about the proposed revised definition. So you can see that a significant majority of the respondents agree that the proposed revised definition is comprehensive. It's 55%. 48% agree that the proposed revised definition is clear, but 33% disagree. 45% think it reflects the available evidence. 34% disagree. And finally, 41% think it will help bullying prevention, while 31% disagree. So now the next slide about to what extent do you agree with the proposed revised definition? So we see that there's a small majority of the respondents that agree with the proposed revised definition, 51%, while almost 40% express disagreement and a bit over 9% need more reflection. So basically, as you can see, most people would like a revised definition, but only a small majority agree with the current one. And we received also very, very interesting comments. We were not able to spend the whole night analyzing the qualitative comments. We had 60 respondents who provided comments, mostly on what shouldn't change, and then 74% and 74 respondents, who provided concrete suggestions in terms of additional revisions or how to phrase differently the revisions that were already proposed. So many responses agree what I just said, the agreements, the disagreements with the individual revisions that were reflected by the quantitative data I just presented. And then also something interesting is that there's a split between those who want a shorter and simpler revised definition and those who want a more comprehensive one. So I think that in the next steps, we'll see how we can reconcile these two groups of people. I mean, we had actually the same debates within the working group in terms of having something shorter or having something longer, so it's not exactly something new. Something I want to clarify before I conclude is that, I mean, because I heard many people referring to the definition as the UNESCO definition, nobody at UNESCO woke up someday last year thinking, oh, we should revise the definition of bullying. This was a request made by one of our member states, France. We worked last year with the French government, with the French Ministry of Education, because we prepared an international conference, and they were the ones who said, we can't work with the current definition. We need UNESCO to bring together experts, the best experts in the world, and to help us with a new definition that we can use in our bullying prevention programs. And I just want to clarify that UNESCO has no vested interest in changing the definition of bullying. UNESCO is here to work for its 193 member states. So we do this, and our role is really to bring together researchers and then to help governments, ministries of education. Shoko mentioned that in Japan, the definition already evolved. And so we are here to support, but we're not here to change things against the will of people. And we are here to basically help improve what governments are doing. And I just want to conclude by thanking my colleagues, Yongfeng Liu, who is in the room, and Danielle, who is in Paris, because they worked all evening to pull this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, interesting.
That's appreciated.
And wow, we so many opinions, right? It was even, you know, green and red, very, very exciting. So Magnus, what will be the next step? Could you please tell us what happens now?
Yes, I will. And I really also agree on that. I mean, this is a delicate matter because it's so much, it's strong ideas, years of work, and it's a very important question. So it's a hard task to solve. But I just want to say on behalf of the World Anti-Bullying Forum that our global community needs a common problem approach. At least what is the problem? if we're not clear on the question, what is the problem, how can we solve a problem? So in order to solve a problem, there needs to be a global community also that takes participation in this work. And we have just started that process, and I'm very, very happy for that. And I think also another idea with the forum is to create dialogue and debate and discussion. And I have heard on this stage several times that this new definition, there has been, it has been a buzz during the days between different people. And I really like that, because then something happens with us. We start to think, and we get different perspectives on the subject, and it moves everything forward. So we also want to ask you, what do you think is the next step for this? So I would like you to take up your mobile phones, because we're going to use the Mentimeter, and we have a QR code here, so you can just photo the QR code. And there will be 3 questions that we would like to ask you about what is the next step. Of course, we want to do things, but we want that to be informed by you too. What is the next step forward for this proposed revised definition of school bullying according to you? What would you like us to do as the next step?
Test it, someone says, Magnus, and try out in practical.
Test it and try out in practical. Thank you, Frida. Yes, please. Please.
Do we have a microphone?
A microphone to Kristina Salmevall.
Could we have a microphone over to the audience here?
Please, come up on stage.
It's on its way.
Come up on stage, Kristina, and you will get the microphone so that you also are in the light.
Oh, kids, ask kids we hear the students, do something
Thank you,
more.
Kristina. Welcome.
you.
Please have a seat.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that the very important question is what a definition is meant for and how it is used. And you were just explaining that we need a common understanding and a common definition that we agree on so that we can work for something. And I think that for me, looking at this new definition, there are 2 things that we need to see as separate. And one is whether I agree with the things that are included in the definition. I agree with that it causes harm. I agree that it's not necessarily repeated or whatever. But the question is, what is a definition and what should be included in a definition? Because in my mind, there are 3 things. And one is, definition is needed to distinguish a phenomenon from the other phenomena that are similar or close to it. And with this definition here, what bullying is and distinguish it from other types of violence, aggression, or harm perceived by someone, it's impossible. Because the definition, one reason why we need a definition is that teachers, for instance, can see that, okay, some student is harmed, feels very harmed. Is this bullying or is this something else? And that's where definition is needed. The other place where definition is needed is for researchers to operationalize and to measure something. Yeah. And it would be impossible to operationalize also this definition. And the third is intervention work. If we say that the educational system failed, there is no perpetrator who is behaving in an unacceptable way that should be intervened, then the intervention would be like every time someone is hurt, that is bullying, and then the school system should, and of course, emphasis on prevention is very crucial, I agree, but there are so many cases where bullying is already ongoing and intervention is needed, and then it's the unacceptable behavior of the bully that needs intervention, and that's also for the best of the bully. So what I basically just wanted to say is that it may be a little bit difficult to respond to these survey questions, because if, for instance, I say that I disagree with including something in the definition, it doesn't necessarily mean that I disagree with the statement. It's just a question
That's
about
brilliant.
what...
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank
An
you.
applause.
An applause
Thank
for
you.
Kristina Salmevall. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, wonderful. And
I will just continue with the 2 more questions, and I also would like to have feedback like this. If there's some, not right now because of time reasons, but we go to the next question, please. How can a new definition be used to fulfill the SDG 16.2 to end all forms of violence against children, including bullying, before 2030? And I just want you to, I mean, that's a huge question, and this will be open also later for the coming 7 days if you want to write something. But please feel free to do that now. And I just want to comment also and thank Christina Salmi again for approaching and saying these things. And if there is someone else who would like to tell us, you could do it afterwards or by email or something else that you want to give a feedback from your own heart or knowledge like this, and we are very open to it. And the third and last question will be, if we change to that one, how would you like to use the proposed definition after the World Anti-Bully Forum 2021 and in between this forum and the next forum in 2023? Because that will also be very meaningful to know if there is ideas on how we could move on with this. I speeded this up a bit for time reasons, but I will make sure that you can come back to these questions also later, because I really just want to involve people in this.
So Magnus, we are getting a lot of interesting answers. Try it out in real life, test it, spread it out, or I won't use it. Well, I like that we are open and transparent and including with all thoughts.
Yeah.
That is the way we work here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
And thank you so much for your work. Thank you, Magnus, and thank you, Christoph. Let's give you a big hand.
Thank you very much.
And a hug.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.